Welcome to this explainer. We're going to dive right into this because we are looking at what is arguably one of the most infamous, heavily debated, and frankly, deeply tragic unsolved mysteries in American history. Picture this. It's December 1996. We're in the quiet, affluent town of Boulder, Colorado. The day after Christmas, 6-year-old JonBenét Ramsey is reported missing. And then, tragically, she's found dead just hours later in the basement of her own home. Now, for nearly 3 decades, this case has been picked apart, spawning endless theories, books, and internet sleuths. But today, we're cutting through all that noise. We're going to break down the actual source material and look directly at the high-stakes evidence fueling the 2 main dueling theories, the family theory and the intruder theory.
Our story starts with what has to be one of the most bizarre pieces of evidence ever left at a crime scene. Listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. That is literally the opening line from a handwritten 2.5-page ransom note that JonBenét's mother, Patsy Ramsey, found on the kitchen stairs early that morning. And this note is highly, highly unusual. Former FBI profilers have noted that it's incredibly rare for kidnappers to just sit there and write out such a lengthy, dramatic note right at the crime scene. I mean, it even reads like it's pulling dialogue straight out of Hollywood movies like Dirty Harry and Speed.
And then, take a look at the exact ransom amount they demanded, $118,000. That's a super specific, kind of random-sounding number, right? Well, investigators quickly realized that this number matched John Ramsey's recent Christmas bonus from his company, exactly down to the dollar. This immediate, glaring details sparked the inside job theory literally from day one. I mean, how would a small foreign faction know the exact dollar amount of an executive's bonus? So this piece of evidence firmly directed the Boulder Police Department's initial focus right onto the Ramsey family.
Okay, let's move into Act 1, the family theory and the note.
So the initial police theory heavily focused on the parents staging the scene to cover up an accident. And you can kind of see why. Textual analysis and some FBI experts pointed out that the author uses what they call distancing language, basically avoiding any personal connection to the victim. Plus, the notepad and the pen used to write the draft and the final note came straight from a desk inside the Ramsey home. But wait, here's where it gets wild. A document analyst for the U.S. Secret Service did their own extensive examination and concluded that there is absolutely no evidence to indicate Patsy Ramsey wrote the note. And later on, 6 certified handwriting experts in a federal court case completely agreed with that. So right from the start, you have top-tier experts looking at the exact same document and coming to completely opposite conclusion.
Now, let's pivot and look at the physical reality of the situation. Right here in the 1996 autopsy report's final diagnosis, the cause of death is clear and unflinching: asphyxia by strangulation associated with craniocerebral trauma. She suffered a massive blow to the head, and a garrote was used around her neck. And this brings us to a major, major point of contention within the family theory. Take a look at the medical examiner's notes detailing that garrote. This wasn't just a simple cord. It was fashioned using a length of parachute cord tied around a broken wooden stick to create this complex tightening mechanism. It was incredibly brutal. Some FBI profilers, like Johnny Douglas, who actually consulted on the case, argued that parents covering up an accidental death generally try to protect or cover the child's body in a caring way. So the incredibly violent and frankly cold-blooded nature of this garrote led a lot of investigators to heavily doubt that a parent could or even would stage such a horrific scene just to cover up an accident.
All right, moving on to Act 2, the 1999 indictment bombshell.
For years, the pressure on the Boulder police and the district attorney's office was immense, and the public kept asking this one huge question. Did a grand jury secretly vote to indict John and Patsy Ramsey back in 1999? Because the proceedings were completely sealed, rumors were swirling everywhere, but nothing was officially confirmed until a judge finally ordered the release of the documents in October 2013. And when those documents were finally unsealed, it was a massive bombshell. They revealed that the grand jury did, in fact, vote to indict. They issued identical indictments for each parent. The exact chilling text for John reads, "He did unlawfully, knowingly, recklessly, and feloniously permit a child to be unreasonably placed in a situation which posed a threat of injury to the child's life or health, which resulted in the death of JonBenét." They also voted to charge them with acting as an accessory to a crime. Now, notice the wording there. It doesn't actually say they outright murdered her, but rather that they placed her in a situation resulting in death and hindered the prosecution of the person who actually did it.
But here is the massive cliffhanger of that entire era. The district attorney at the time, Alex Hunter, flat out refused to sign the indictment. Despite the grand jury's true bill,
Hunter and his team firmly believed they simply didn't have enough evidence to prove these charges beyond a reasonable doubt in a trial. And because he didn't sign it, the Ramseys were never charged. And the secret of that grand jury's vote was just locked away until 2013. Which brings us to Act 3, the intruder theory pivot. So, legendary retired homicide detective Lou Smit is brought into the case, and he completely flips the trajectory of the investigation. He puts together this really compelling list of physical anomalies that point straight to an intruder. First, when police searched the house, they couldn't find any roll of duct tape that matched the tape placed over JonBenét's mouth. They couldn't find any parachute cord in the home to match the garrote. On her back, there were these red rectangular marks that Smith's research found to be perfectly consistent with an air taser stun gun, which the Ramseys absolutely did not own. And finally, right next to the body in the basement, there was an unidentified boot print from a high-tech brand boot. None of the Ramseys and none of the responding officers wore those boots. Smit argued this was undeniable evidence of an intruder who brought their own tools into the home, subdued the child with a stun gun, and left that print. Naturally, this evidence sent private investigators hunting for suspects, and the search quickly got pretty messy. A lot of investigators pointed to a man named Michael Helgoff, who died of an apparent suicide shortly after the murder. Police photos of his death scene actually showed a stun gun and high-tech boots. It looked like a total smoking gun, right? But check out the counter-argument from Boulder Police Chief Mark Beckner. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation actually tested those specific boots from Helgoff, and they did not match the partial print in the basement. On top of that, his DNA was not a match to the crime scene. Chief Beckner stated very clearly, there is nothing that ties this guy into the case. It was a total dead end, and it really just highlights the incredible difficulty of matching this intruder evidence to an actual, real person. And that leads us perfectly into Act 4, the DNA dilemma. This brings us to the microscopic evidence that everyone hopes will provide absolute answers. But in this case, it only provides more debate. In 2003, trace DNA recovered from JonBenét's clothing was found to belong to an unidentified male. And in 2008, the DA actually sent a formal letter clearing the Ramsey family based entirely on this DNA. But look at the complications here. As FBI DNA experts point out, this is what's called touch DNA. This is exactly why interpreting microscopic evidence in modern true crime is wildly complex. It might just be microbial DNA, or it could literally be an innocent transfer from a factory worker in Indonesia who happened to fold the underwear before it was packaged. Furthermore, because the family actually lived in the house, distinguishing normal background DNA from actual intruder DNA is almost impossible. The DNA is there, for sure, but interpreting what it actually means, that is incredibly difficult.
But hey, there is a serious glimmer of hope on the horizon: genetic genealogy. This is the exact same cutting-edge technique that finally caught the Golden State Killer. Basically, you take that unidentified male profile, run it through public ancestry databases, find distant cousins, and build a family tree all the way down to a suspect. The FBI and private labs have used this to solve massive cold cases in a matter of weeks. The Boulder Police Department is currently utilizing the latest DNA testing methods, hoping this specific technique might be the key to finally unmasking the unidentified male profiles sitting in their files.
Which brings us to today. Patsy Ramsey sadly passed away in 2006. But nearly 30 years later, John Ramsey is still publicly fighting. He's still showing up at events like Crime Unfiltered to share his family story and keep the pressure on investigators. He's out there desperately searching for his daughter's killer, maintaining his absolute innocence, and constantly pushing for the advancement of that DNA testing. So, we end with this final thought. We've seen the textual analysis of a near-impossible ransom note. We've seen the brutal medical reality. We've seen a secret grand jury indictment against the parents, completely countered by physical evidence of an intruder with a stun gun and parachute cord. With over 20,000 tips investigated and advanced DNA forensics just waiting in the wings, will the ghost story of the Ramsey house ever truly be solved? Or will it forever remain the ultimate locked room mystery? I really hope this explainer helped you untangle the intense, conflicting evidence that keeps this case haunting the American consciousness. Thanks for learning with me today.